Jaime Munguia tested positive for PEDs.
Unfortunate.
When it comes to steroids, it's a dirty part of the sport. And to be honest, I hate talking about it. But, you know, when a
A
star
star.
like Jaime Munguia gets popped, we gotta address it. Let's talk about it, my people. You already know what it is. I'm Jay Smith. This is Bob Center, your favorite boxing show. Um, so yeah, Jaime Munguia, who in his last outing beat Bruno Sarasi, now tested positive for steroids. And, it's a situation which you have to really wonder what's going on. Because at this point, how many fighters related to Eddy Reynoso have been popped?
You know, it's you know, I don't even know off the top.
Top of my head. And it's, names. We're talking about Canelo Alvarez, Oscar Valdez, and others, along with now Jaime Munguia. So I think it is suspicious. I know that, you know, steroids is going to be a part of the sport. There's going to be people who who want to find ways. But I think it is at least suspicious to see that, so many fighters related to the same coach keep getting
Pop for steroids.
Seems
Seems
like
like
Eddy
Eddie Reynoso.
Reynoso is the common link between these fighters. So I don't know. I think that to me that's suspect. Is Eddy Reynoso the plug or something? Is he the one hooking them up, or is he the one who got the connections to make it happen? What's going on? Ben Israel, shalom Jay. Good morning, my brother. Salute. Appreciate you dropping in, man. Boys be crying. Hope his B sample comes out as negative. Other way, Munguia is fucked. You saw his explanation video. I did not see his explanation video. I'm gonna check it out after this live. But like I said, my brother, it's so. I'm somebody who doesn't believe a lot in coincidences, and to me, it's a very strange coincidence that you know a lot of big name fighters that are with Eddy Reynoso have tested positive for steroids. I don't know. I think you know at some point you have to wonder what's going on. What is going on? Because look, I'm not trying to play innocent. I know that steroids is a part of the sport, and I know that there's people that have used it and didn't get away and didn't get caught and all that stuff. I know stuff happens, but for it to be associated with the same guy, with these fighters that are training with him, you have to wonder suspicious activity.
It looks like at least
There could be suspicious activity. All of them connected to the same guy. And you get popped. I don't know. But I seen a statement from Bruno Saras where he says, he hoped they overturn the decision.
I don't know. I guess maybe they could.
Make it a no contest. And the crazy thing is that you have to consider that first fight. Bruno Saras went to Mexico to fight Jaime Munguia, and he beat him up, beat him up. And now the rematch, I don't know if you guys saw the rematch, but it was completely one-sided in Jaime Munguia's favor. Completely one-sided. He dominated him, beat him up. So, and now he tests positive. But I seen that, some Boys Be Crying said that there's a video of Munguia explaining himself. I want to see what he got to say. Did you see it, my brother? Did you see what Munguia said? Boys be crying. Two fights that may be overturned is crazy work. But let me ask you, did you see what Munguia had to say about why he tested positive? Because I remember with Valdez, it was the teeth. Oh, he had some teeth. With Canelo, it was the beef. He had some infected, so tainted meat. What was Munguia's, excuse or reason for testing positive? And look, this is an ugly part of the sport of boxing. Cause, yo, without without PEDs, people could get killed in the ring. People have been killed in the ring without PEDs.
It's happened.
So imagine once you add that extra strength, punching each other, you can kill somebody. Boys be crying. He said he's clean fighter and his supplements are in order, something like that. They should jail those fighters. Yo, I agree with you, bro. You could kill somebody in a combat sport where we're punching each other. We've seen it. We've seen people die in the ring, get taken out of the ring unconscious and die later. We've seen it. So when somebody gets popped for steroids, the penalty has to be stiff. Has to be a real stiff penalty. And I believe that jail should be considered
Jail should be considered.
for somebody using steroids in a combat sport. They should. I agree with you. Um, let's see where this goes. This whole situation, um, I think at some point people are gonna start pointing at Eddy Reynoso because how do your fighters keep getting popped? How do your guys keep catching it? Boys be crying. Imagine getting hit at the back of the head by someone on PEDs. Imagine that. Or even, or even right in your chin. Somebody swinging, one of those haymakers like that and catching you right there and spinning your head back. They could take you out right there. So the penalty, I want to see how this is going to play out. I want to see how the whole situation with Munguia, are they going to overturn the decision? That's one thing. You know, I think that every time somebody gets popped, if they won that fight, the decision needs to be overturned. Every single time. That should be standard in boxing. That's the one thing that I don't like. Sometimes you see that somebody gets popped and nothing really happens. You don't really see
Any changes when it comes to the
results. Like I'll give you an example. Alicia Baumgartner tested positive for PEDs after beating Christina Leonardatu. And what happened with that? She not only did she keep all her titles, but the decision remained the same. Alicia Baumgartner kept her win, and Christina Leonardatu, no longer a champion, and got that loss on her record. So she got a loss on her record that was given to her by somebody who popped dirty.
boys be crying. Garcia.
Broke his hand. It may not be the same, which is his karma. But who knows what's waiting for Munguia. I think that we should find out pretty soon as far as Jaime Munguia. And I'm wondering, man, is Eddy Reynoso going to, at some point, be held accountable, or at some point, be mixed up in this? Because it looks like he somehow has been able to keep his name clean. Like he comes up because it's his guys getting popped, but nobody's really, saying, damn, this guy, you gotta be involved with this shit. Is he the plug? Is he the person getting it for him? Is he the person? And look at Jaime Munguia, for example. He's a fighter who was working with somebody else, training with somebody else, and he joined Eddy Reynoso's team. When was it? Was it last year, the year before that? I'm not sure, but Munguia is not a fighter who came up under Eddy Reynoso, like Canelo did, for example. He's a guy who joined that team later in his career, and now boom, he popped 30.
Suspicious, to say the least. Boys be crying if
Munguia did, he's a big coward. This also could be a business move, knowing that Munguia brings money and they can't afford him to lose. Same with Garcia. So, in fact, you remember that they've been saying that Munguia could have even been the next face of boxing or the next big thing. They kind of had those type of projections for him. But it's not a good look. But like I said, my brother, I feel like every time somebody tests positive for steroids, if they won, that decision needs to be overturned. Every single time. Now, I think that there's a lot of factors to consider because I do think that, a fighter can consume something that was tainted, have something, can take something that they didn't know was going to pop dirty because they didn't know it was steroids or that it was had an illegal substance in it. But there's things that can happen. So, you have to investigate. But once you determine this guy willingly took PEDs,
that's it. Take that win away.
sanction them, suspend them for a very long time, do all type of shit that you gotta do. But you can't have someone, get popped and then they're back to fighting like nothing happened 3 months, 6 months later, like okay, we back. Everything is cool with them. Like I'll give you an example. A 6 month suspension is just dumb. You know why? Sometimes fighters get suspended for 6 months just because they was involved, in a slugfest. Suspended. You gotta make sure you heal. Cool. That's like serving a suspension for a tough fight. So when it comes to steroids, you gotta get them out of there for years. Years.
You got pop.
Uh, at 23 years old, you out of here till you like 28. 5 years, you out of here. First instance, 5 years, you out of here. Second instance, that's it. You don't box no more. You're done. You're cooked. Your career's over, buddy. That's how it should be. First time, 5 years. Lose most of your prime on the suspension.
They have it. You.
If you're talented enough, you can come back and make it happen. If not, you're cooked. You're done.
That's
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 how it should be, my people. It has to be a super stiff penalty, for everyone who pops dirty. And then you have to start wondering,
should there be a penalty for the train?
who are working with fighters who pop dirty. Should they? That's the magic question.
Because
If there's a penalty on the trainer, the coach, let's say the same type of suspension that the fighter gets applies to the trainer as well. I guarantee you that trainers will be telling their fighters, yo, don't do this shit. You're putting my career on the line too. You're putting my ass on the line too. As a trainer, as a coach, you're not gonna be able to look the other way if your ass is getting suspended too. So I think that's something to consider. Consider it.
if a fighter
Pops dirty, him and the trainers that are working with him at the time all get suspended for the same amount of time. So if the fighter's out for a year, those working with him are also out for a year. I guarantee you, if you do something like that, now you're gonna have trainers, coaches telling their fighters, yo, don't do steroids. Because if we do steroids, we all out of here. We all get suspended. We all messed up in the game. Don't do it. Now you're gonna have, the whole team encouraging the fighters not to mess around with PEDs because they understand that the consequences are gonna hit everybody. We all out of here. But if I'm a trainer and I don't get no consequences if you pop dirty, fuck it, do your thing. I'ma just look the other way. And I'ma act like I don't know what's going on. Easy work. Easy work. So I think the whole steroid stuff, we have to do better. Do better. Fighters gotta do better as far as staying clean. Trainers gotta do better, and everybody who's working with them in the gym, road work, everywhere. Everybody who's working with fighters has to be in on a clean, on a fighter being clean. That's the way you do it. It's a whole team effort. If you have a team where everybody's looking the other way and everybody's acting like I don't know what's going on, then that's it. That's it. You have a problem. And, I'm not in the Eddy Reynoso camp. I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know how they move. But I know that his fighters keep get popped.
I'm wondering, yo,
What's going on? Why these guys related to the same training keep testing positive?
it is almost like
Every certain amount of time, boom, an Eddy Reynoso fighter goes down. Then it goes quiet, and then boom, another Eddy Reynoso fighter goes down for steroids once again. Then the conversation dies down, and then boom, another one. What's going on with Eddy Reynoso stable?
and I'm not.
Saying that he's guilty of anything. I'm not saying that he's done anything. I haven't seen anything to suggest that he has done anything illegal or that he, is involved in whatever's going on. But isn't it a huge coincidence that, Eddy Reynoso fighters keep getting popped for steroids? Jaime Munguia wasn't even with Eddy Reynoso until like what, last year, 2 years ago? He just joined that team. And now he pops dirty. So I would have to say that's at least suspicious. At least suspicious.
The fact that
As a trainer, you have fighters who keep testing positive. That makes me wonder, what's going on? How, how are you guys moving? That's the question. How do you guys move internally to where, could it even be possible that Eddy Reynoso fighters keep, popping dirty and he's not aware of it? He doesn't know that they were doing steroids.
now you
Supposedly, Jaime Munguia is already saying that he's not guilty, that he didn't do it, that he's a clean fighter, taking supplements, whatever. Okay.
they're gonna test the
For
beast.
example, to be honest with y'all, man, since I've been following boxing, I still haven't seen a B sample come back negative. Oh yeah, the B sample's good. Nah, it's not.
Cause just so that you know,
A sample and B sample are from the same urine. It's not that a fighter or an athlete urinated twice. What they do basically is this
the urine.
and there's the same urine in two separate samples. So when they test the first one, if it's dirty, they'll say, okay, maybe the cup could be tainted, maybe there's a bunch of different factors that could have affected it. So now let's test the B sample, which is the same urine. So if this is clean, then that means that, somehow this was tainted. And when they test the B sample, it always comes back dirty. It's like, yeah, that was dirty, this is dirty, motherfucker. You on steroids. Cash fast. Everybody is juicing. It's just some know, how to juice better than others. Nah, that's not true. That's not true. Everybody's not juicing. Made that up out of thin air, bro. That's a horrible assumption to make as well. But, Tank Davis does have a lot of power. I don't know if it's juicing. He's never been, involved in anything that would suggest that he's juicing. But he does got a lot of power. When you say everybody's juicing, and, Tank Davis being such a hard fighter, but I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't say that everybody's juicing. There's a lot of clean fighters out there. A lot of fighters who train hard. Um, I've personally been involved with boxing, and I've seen it myself how some fighters just give it their 100%, and they're there to not just win, but win in a clean fashion based off of their skills alone. And then you have the fighters that's gonna look to have an edge, and they're gonna look to cheat because look, cheating has been a part of every physical sport. Every physical, especially combat sport. Every combat sport, you talk about boxing, if you talk about MMA, if you talk about other combat sports, you're gonna find that people have been popped for steroids. People are gonna cheat, and they're gonna try to get an advantage. Because the one thing people don't realize, steroids is not just that they give you strength, they give you strength. No, they also allow your body to recover. So when a fighter, for example, goes and spar, let's say 20 rounds, his body is wasted. Well, this other fighter who's doing steroids, he will spar 20 rounds, and the next day he's gonna wake up fresh, fresh, ready for that road work, ready to spar a few rounds again and do everything you gotta do inside the gym like nothing. While that other fighter who isn't on steroids, that next day, his body's gonna be sore. He's not gonna do road work because his legs are gonna be jelly. You're gonna have to rest a little bit and then take it easy in the gym the following day. So it's a difference in how somebody trains if they're clean and how somebody trains if they're on steroids. They're different.
Um,
Try to get my people, like I said, when somebody gets popped, the consequences need to be real stiff. It needs to be, this is my opinion, minimum 5 year suspension for the first one. You pop 30 the first time, 5 years. And you know why I say 5 years? Because 5 years is enough time to take a nice chunk of your prime. Imagine you're 25 years old. You're going to get out of that 30. Imagine you're 30. You're going to get out of that at 35. If you're 35, you're going to get out at 40. This is career changing shit if they get you out of there for 5 years. And then a second time, you're gone for good. No more boxing for you, buddy. You're banned. That's how it needs to be. First time, 5 year suspension. Second time, you're banned from boxing. And now let's talk about what are the consequences for the people who are involved with you. Because there are none. So like I said, if I'm a trainer and my fighter is doing steroids and I feel like, okay, yeah, that's gonna help him win, I could just look away. I don't know what's going on. I didn't know what he was doing. Because at the end of the day, if he wins, I'm gonna get the glory. I'm gonna get that pay. My, my profile's gonna skyrocket. My star power, my leverage to negotiate. But if he pops dirty, I could just say I didn't know anything. I don't know what happened. I can play clueless. He gets suspended, no consequences for me. I keep training my other fighters, working with everybody like nothing happened. So in a way, that's how I see Eddy Reynoso. Like, yeah, it's suspicious that his fighters keep getting popped, but that don't affect him in no way, shape, or form. Should there be some type of consequences when it comes to those who are training these fighters who pop dirty? I feel like there should be. I feel like there should definitely be. Because you're the one preparing that fighter to step in the ring. And he's cheating.
So I
I
don't.
don't want to hear that. I didn't know he was cheating. I didn't want to hear that shit. That's your fighter. Oh, you didn't know that you're not about to know about the suspension your ass is getting too. I don't know, my people. I just think that, and look, it's not just in boxing. In sports in general, they are not tough enough on steroids. They're not. They are not. Hash bad. Who is their strength and conditioning coach? I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure who's their strength and conditioning coach, but I don't think that Munguia, Canelo, um, Valdez, and other Eddy Reynoso fighters who tested positive, I don't think they all had the same strength and conditioning coach. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question when it comes to either Jaime Munguia or the rest of the fighters with Eddy Reynoso. But I don't think, they all had the same one. But, again, when you look at a team like that, it's being ran by Eddy Reynoso. It's not like these guys are bringing in their own people.
Now,
Could this happen without Eddy Reynoso having any type of knowledge about it? Could it happen?
mm, I think it's a possibility.
It's possible, but least likely. It is possible that these guys, got their own plug out there and they're doing their, and Eddie Reynoso has no idea about it. It's possible, but it's highly unlikely. You work with these guys on a daily basis.
I just find it
Too hard to believe and too convenient
for Eddie Reynoso,
to not know anything that's going on.
and they keep getting popped.
Boom, boom, boom. Nah, I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Now, suspicious activity doesn't prove guilt. Doesn't prove that he's done anything wrong. Okay. All I'm saying is that to me it's suspicious, and I'm not a fan or a believer of coincidence over and over. I'm not a fan of that. But I guess maybe with time we'll find out. We'll learn. Because it seems like this is bigger than what we see in plain sight. When guys keep getting popped, but they're associated to the same trainer. I don't know if one day we're gonna be watching a Netflix documentary about how Eddie Reynoso was the plug, was the connection to get the real shit. I don't know, man. Like, I'm just saying. Um, in other news, in other news, Jerome Boost Ennis clapped back at Teofimo Lopez, and he said, I mean, I didn't see him say that. It was a report actually that I read, so I don't know if it's on video. But supposedly he said, "You need me, I don't need you." Um, I don't know about that line, honestly. To me, and I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. That line sounded duck-ish to me.
I felt some.
Tasted some duck sauce in that line. And you know why? Because Teofimo Lopez is a bigger name than Jerome Boots Ennis. He's a more accomplished fighter than Boots. He's he's more accomplished. You know, winning titles in different divisions, beating bigger names. So for Boots to say you need me, I don't need you, that's crazy work.
That's crazy work to me.
What do you mean I don't need you?
And I'm
Let me
gonna.
say something. Look, I'm not saying that Boots needs Teofimo.
I'm not saying that he needs it, but what I am saying,
Is that Boots does need a big name in his resume. And Teofimo is a big name.
it's a lot of names out
Okay. So it's true. Boots doesn't need Tio. There's other big names out there that he can fight. There's other big fights. That's true.
there. But
Right now, who is Boots gonna fight next? We don't know. Is he gonna fight a bigger name than Teofimo Lopez? We shall see.
we'll see. Um,
Teofimo would definitely represent the biggest name that Boots has faced in his career.
come on here. Hash Bass Boost.
Should take on that challenge, but Till hasn't done anything at 147. I mean, Teofimo is moving up. You can literally say that about every fighter when they move up. What fighter is moving up and has done anything? He was fighting in a lower division, bro. But at the end of the day, imagine Boots turns down Teofimo and his next fight is versus some European guy we never heard of. Some other Karen. You know, a guy with a good record, good fighter that we never heard of. That won't be a good look. It won't. So we have to see who is Jerome Boots Ennis gonna fight next. Because right now it does look like he's ducking Tio.
Look like he's ducking him. As you
So
know,
it's hard to, and I don't like the fact that boxing fans, when they want to be biased for a fighter, they find an explanation for it. Any other fighter turns down a fight, oh, he ducked it. He ducked it.
but then when
Other fighters do the same thing. Oh, nah, he didn't take the fight because maybe it's not enough money, or maybe he don't want to fight him because he don't got nothing to gain, or they find the reason why it's okay to decline the. They find what I was saying. It's like an excuse. Hold on, my people. Let me turn some lights on. 5 in the morning, 5:15 in the morning in the Dominican Republic, my people. Get some of these lights turned on. So that's all I'm saying. You have to consider the fact that that's the question that people ask about Jerome Boots Ennis. Like, look what you said. Look what you asked. You look what you said. Hash Bass. That Teofimo hasn't beat nobody at the 130, at the 147 division, right? But just like you say that, people say the same thing about Boots. And that, my brother, I remember that you told me the same thing about Boots. Look, you see how you said that about Tio? He didn't beat nobody at 147. You told me the same thing about Boots. You were like, oh, Boots ain't beat nobody. Boots need a name in his resume. Hold on,
Hash bash.
One thing about those European fighters, they're strong and have good foot placement. Of course, listen, European fighters are real good fighters. The thing is that oftentimes, they have a long career in the amateur, and people, especially in the U.S., don't know them like that. So they think, oh, this guy's a bum. This guy, I don't know him. I never heard of him. Like, Karen is a good fighter. Karen is a good fighter.
I could tell you that right now. Boots beating him, that's a good win for him. Two good wins because he fought him twice. But we still have to look at why would Jerome Boots Ennis turn down Teofimo Lopez if he hasn't had a fight with a big name like that. If he hasn't been on the big stage. Boots hasn't been on the big stage yet. He hasn't. you know. So I agree with you, Hash Bass. Obviously, that's a fact. He's a unified champion at the welterweight division. But you like to play. I realize, my brother, that you like to play devil's advocate. Like, if I'm saying one thing, you try to go against it in a different way. Like, one day you arguing against Boots, but now you arguing for Boots. Because, bro, it wasn't even that long ago you was debating about how Boots ain't beat nobody, Stanionis ain't really all that, blah, blah, blah. And now you're like, nah, he's a champion. He's a two belt champion, a unified champion. Now you want to play the Boots guy. And one day you want to be the against Boots guy. Maker, what's good, Jay Smith? What's good, Maker? Appreciate you dropping in, my brother. Talking about the whole situation, with Jerome Boots Ennis and Teofimo Lopez. I thought that fight was going to go down, but I don't understand what happened. Hash Bash. We're having a conversation, Jay Smith. No doubt we're having a combo. But what I'm telling you is that with Boots, it looks like he may be ducking Teofimo, and you're agreeing that he should take that fight. But now you're giving Boots credit as a as a two belt champion, and just a few weeks ago you were like, nah, Boots didn't beat nobody. Who he beat? So it's like one day you're asking who he beat, and the next day you're saying, oh, he a champion. He unified. But again, to me, right now, it looks like a duck. And what I do, and I try to tell people this, I keep the same energy for everybody. That's what boxing fans oftentimes lack. Like, look, Hash Bass, you see the energy that you have for Tank Davis and the energy that you have for Shakur, or the energy that you have for Crawford is totally different. Why? Because you ask these guys to fight the best, but when it comes to Tank Davis, you never ask him to fight the best. You never ask him to move up and fight the big boys. You act like he's stuck at the 135 division, and you got to validate everybody he chooses to fight when he never fights the best. And then you ask other guys to fight the best. So I keep the same energy. If I say this fighter ducked because he didn't fight this guy, well, when other fighters do the same thing, I call it a duck. I'm not gonna sit here, and you can look at historical data from this channel, and you'll see Jerome Boots Ennis is a fighter that I support. I consider Boots a very special fighter, very special. But that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna call it a duck if that's what I see. I'm not biased. I call it how I see it. Maker. Who's the A side in that? Boots or Tio? I think the A side in that fight, maybe Boots, simply because Tio's moving up and Boots is gonna be the unified champion. Not just that, this fight will probably go down in the zone. It will be Teofimo who would have to go over there for that fight. Not Boots go to top rank. So I think that's the way that it goes. Boots will be the guy getting the bigger piece of the pie. Or it could be close to 50-50. And I say that because, Teofimo Lopez represents the biggest name in Boo's resume, the biggest, the biggest star he ever faced. Hash Bass. Boost is chasing undisputed. If Boost can't get that, Boost should move up. You see, you lost me where you're talking about what he should do. Right there, you look. What do you mean he should? Come on now. You want to be the manager again. Anthony Robertson. So wanted Teofimo to get his teeth knocked out his mouth. Teofimo is no match for Teo. Teofimo is no match for Teo. Gave you a friend hurt. Maybe Boots. You lying. What the fuck are you talking about? Anthony Robertson, 50-50, okay. Well, Boots chose not to make that fight. So, it was up to him. The ball was on his court. The ball was on his court, and he chose not to make the fight. So, right now, I'm calling it a duck. That's what I see. Every time, that's the thing, man. We have to stop saying this guy's a duck because he didn't take that fight, but that guy's not a duck. Huh? What do you mean? What do you mean? I don't understand this. How are some guys how do you decide that one fighter is a duck for not taking a fight with a tough fighter, and then another fighter is not a duck for also not taking a fight? That's suspicious, a very suspicious way of thinking to me. And by coincidence, it's the fighter that you like that you think is not a duck. And the fighter that you don't like, oh yeah, he ducking. He a duck. MAW, hello boxing. Fans J and chat, smash that like button, please, folks. Ooh, MAW, appreciate you dropping in, my brother. Hell yeah. Anthony Robertson, you can't believe Teo Lopez can beat Boost, unified 147 champion. It's not about what we believe, my brother. Boxing is not about what we believe. You probably couldn't believe that Terrence Crawford was going to pummel Errol Spence, but he did exactly that. Boxing is not about what we believe. Hash Bass. We don't know what the offer was between Teo and Boots. We don't have to know what the offer was because Boots never said that they didn't offer him enough money. Boots didn't say the money wasn't right. He just said, yo, Teo, you need me, I don't need you. He never said it. Nobody has ever said that the money was a problem. Now, if you want to make conspiracies out of thin air, you're good at that. You could do that. But nobody has said that. Maker, what would you think if Boots said, I won't give Teo a shot because of his racist antics? I know I'm being hypothetical. Honestly, that's something that I'm going to have like mixed emotions about it. And I say have mixed emotions about it because I have a hard time wanting to mix what goes on outside versus what goes on inside the ring. Whether you like Teofimo or not, and I've spoken about the racist stuff, which I hated as well, but what he does inside the ring should not be connected to racist shit that he does outside the ring. So, whether we like him or not, we have to agree that Teofimo Lopez is an elite level fighter. He's a legitimate champion, a multi-division champion. So, his accomplishments inside the ring don't change by him acting like an idiot or by him being a racist if that's what he is. So, you don't like him? To me, it makes more sense that you fight him and beat the shit out of him in the ring then. Beat him up. So, I don't like the concept of, well, he's a racist, so I'm not going to fight him, which Tank Davis already did. Tank Davis. So, when it comes to Tank Davis, I even see it as an excuse. Now, Tank Davis has the excuse not to fight him. Oh, I'm not going to fight him because he's a racist. I'm not going to give him the opportunity. Oh, but maybe you just didn't want to get your ass whooped. Anthony Robertson, boxers run their mouth, okay? I mean, I'm down with the trash talking, but racist stuff, now every boxer doesn't go around saying a bunch of racist stuff. So let's not Anthony Robertson trying to bunch them all in together. Oh, they're all just trash talking. Nah, brother. Trash talking and racism is not the same thing. MAW. A duck depends on options, in my humble opinion. If you're looking to unify instead of not fighting for a full title, then I consider that not be a duck, to be honest. And that makes sense, MAW. I mentioned this yesterday. If Boots is going to fight Brian Norman Jr. next to unify titles, then I say, okay, it's not a duck. Cool. If he's going to fight the winner of Manny Pacquiao, Mario Barrios next, cool. But if Boots is going to fight some European cat that we never heard of, another Karen, good fighter that we never heard of with a good record, then I'm going to say it's a duck. I'm going to call it a duck. I don't want to hear it. For this to not be a duck, Boots got to either fight for a title or fight another big name that we could say, yeah, okay, you're not fighting Teofimo Lopez, but you're fighting Devin Haney. Cool. You're fighting Blair Cobb. Cool. You're fighting Conor Benn. Great. If he's going to fight a big name, if he's going to fight somebody that is going to make people go crazy, cool, he's not a duck. But if you're going to fight, like I said, some European guy, some Asian guy, some Hispanic guy that we never heard of, with a good record, but we don't know nobody he beat, is definitely going to be a duck. How do we get around that? How do we bypass that? You had an opportunity to fight a star. Teofimo Lopez is a star, my peoples. That's what I'm saying. Hate him or like him. Let's be honest. Boots don't got nobody in his resume that comes even close to Teofimo. Nobody. Anthony Robertson. Boots Ennis, the 147 unified champ, is ducking Teofimo. Stop it. He chose not to fight him. He chose not to fight him. He had an offer on the table and said, nah, decline the offer. That's a duck. That's the thing, Anthony Robertson, that when you're a fan, you decide who's ducking and who's not. That's crazy. You put your own logic in your head. Oh, he's the welterweight champion. How could he be ducking? Stop it. Stop it, bro. Nobody give a damn about he's the champion. Teofimo, bro, let me school you. Let me educate you a little bit. You're talking about the welterweight champion. Teofimo Lopez is a multi-division champion. It's a lineal champion. It's a unified champion. Beat Hall of Famers. Lomachenko going to the Hall of Fame. Teofimo Lopez's resume is up here. Boots' resume is down here. Down here. You can't even name most of Boots' opponents if you don't Google it. You don't know who Boots beat if you don't Google that shit. Most of Boots' opponents, you never seen them fight. Come on now. Stop. MAW. Jay, I thought if B. Norman busy fighting Sakai and Barrios fighting Pac-Man, then Boots should be free to fight Tio. Oh, but maybe Boots gonna do his mandatory. Maybe, we'll see. So this is what I have to say, my brother, when it comes to that. Brian Norman Jr. is going to fight in June. That's next month. That's coming up already. So there is a probability or a possibility that they're going to wait on that fight to try to fight Brian Norman Jr. next. Because that's already next month. So that can happen. And That's a big fight to me. I want to see Brian Norman Jr. and Boots. I want to see that fight. That's a unification fight. And Brian Norman Jr. can fight. That's a very good, very competitive showdown. Um, let's see. Hopefully they can come to terms when it comes to the negotiations and make that fight happen. Because I really want to see Boots be able to get the opportunity to shoot for undisputed. I want to see it. But if they cannot get that fight with Brian Norman Jr., who is Boots gonna fight next? That's the magic question. Right now, with him not having an opponent and Tio not having an opponent lined up, I think it would have been a perfect time for Boots versus Tio to happen. Maker, I haven't heard a single thing from the Boots camp. In this day of social media, I find that crazy. Had anyone said anything? Supposedly, Maker, supposedly, Boots said, and I saw a report, I didn't hear it from Boots' mouth, that Boots said, Teofimo needs me, I don't need him. Supposedly, that's what he said. Which to me sounds like duck language. Because, you know, why are you saying that he needs you and you don't need him when you don't have a big star in your resume? And that's what Teofimo is. Boots' stock would skyrocket if he beat Teofimo. Would skyrocket. Anthony Robertson, you don't give a damn. What can I say, my brother? You're right, I don't give a damn, but you don't give a damn either. Maker, Hash Bass, Boots versus Norman Jr., and how many names came out of Tio's mouth on who he wants to fight, including Crawford. I mean, Teofimo is showing us that he's all about that smoke. He's willing to fight everybody. It's not about how many names came out his mouth that he's willing to fight. It's how far he has gone, because they sent an offer to Boots. Are you not understanding? They sent him an offer and he declined it. So when you compare him saying Crawford's name, he didn't just say Boots' name, bro. They sent him an offer. In case you were not aware, it's an offer that Boots declined. So the situation with Crawford has nothing to do with the situation with Boots. They actually tried to make that fight happen, and Boots shot it down. They wasn't trying to fight Crawford. That was just talking. He even said it himself. I was just talking. Come on now. Have you seen Crawford fighting at the welterweight division? Has Teofimo said that he's going to move up to 154, 160, 168? No, that fight was never on the table. Boots was offered the fight and declined it. Crawford was not. You're comparing apples to oranges. Let's stick to the apples, my guy. Stop bringing in the oranges. MAW. Love or hate it, Tio is more accomplished than Boots, because Tio got 4 belts at 135 and 1 at 140 plus 2 ring belts, while Boots only 2 belts at 147 and 1 ring belt. Of course, MAW. Teofimo Lopez is more accomplished than Boots. Multi-division champion, unified champion, lineal champion. Lomachenko is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and Teofimo got a win over him. Teofimo got bigger wins than Jerron Boots Ennis. A way better resume. So, Boots needs a fighter like that to boost up his own resume, to boost up his stock. He might not need Tio. Cool. You say you don't need him, but you still need a star in your resume. That's the magic question that people will ask. Oh, who he beat? Who he beat? Who he beat? Who he beat? Well, Teofimo Lopez could have been in that resume. Maker. Man, what happened to Tio versus Keyshawn? That would have been dope. Who do you got in that fight, Jay Smith? Listen, man, honestly, it's tough for me to make a prediction on that one. Real tough for me to make a prediction, because I want to go with Keyshawn Davis, but it's hard to bet against against Teofimo with his skill set. So I would have to wait, to be honest, for the fight to actually be happening to make a prediction. I would love to see it. You know that those two guys, they don't like each other at all. They've had situations that got physical. That's been spoken about. Even Teofimo's pops got hands put on him. I heard he got knocked out or at least dropped. But that's tough, my brother. I can't predict that fight. I'm not ready to predict that fight. You know, Keyshawn Davis is one of the best fighters today. And Teofimo Lopez is also one of those. They're both, you know, some of the main characters in boxing. Hash Bass, you know this to be true, that they made Boots an offer. Yes, they without a doubt made Boots an offer and he turned it down. Yes. Matter of fact, I think you could even Google that shit. Google that shit. Google that shit right now. You'll be able to see. In fact, I saw Teofimo, I think it was yesterday, saying, like, yo, they declined the offer. They know. They scared. Some along those lines. That not those exact words. But some along those lines that they declined the offer because they know. You know, suggested that they ducking that smoke. And look, that's what it looks like. They ducking that smoke. That's what it looks like. I have to say it. And it's like I told you, when you see this live or when you have this conversation with me, you know, it's easy to assume, oh, this guy doesn't like Boots or he hating on Boots or no, my peoples. Boots is one of my favorite fighters of today. I support him 100% and I expect Boots to accomplish big things. But I have to call it how I see it. It looks like a duck to me. Derek, salute, brother. Appreciate you dropping in, my G. Bam. So what do you think, Derek? Jerron Boots and Teofimo Lopez. That fight could have happened. Boots declined the offer, and now it's not gonna go down. I say Boots is ducking. Now, I do acknowledge if Boots is gonna fight Brian Norman Jr. next, it's not a duck because he's gonna fight to try to unify those three belts and get one step closer to becoming undisputed. I respect that. But if you're gonna fight, you know, another Karen, some other European guy that we never heard of, with a good record, good fighter, but we never heard of him, we don't know who he beat, then this is gonna be seen as a duck. Because you could have had your first fight versus a big name in boxing, versus a big star, a big profile win if you're able to beat Teofimo Lopez. So now for Boots to say, you know what, you need me, I don't need you. I don't know, that doesn't sit right with my spirit. It doesn't. Derek, I don't know, man. Norman turned down the offer, and if Manny wins, he ain't fighting Boots. Tio is the best fight he can make right now. So I don't see Manny Pacquiao fighting Boots if he wins. And even Mario Barrios, if he beats Pacquiao, I don't see him fighting Boots. You know why I don't see Pacquiao fighting Boots? Take this into consideration, my brother. You know that Boots used to fight with PBC. He always used to fight on PBC cards. He used to fight on Showtime. When he became a free agent, he could have signed with Al Heyman and went to Amazon Prime and the other platforms that they've been fighting on. But he chose to sign with Eddie Hearn and fight on the Zone. So you think if he went from free agency to Eddie Hearn, Al Heyman is going to sacrifice Mario Barrios to Boots and lose that title to Eddie Hearn and Matchroom? I don't think so. I don't see it happening. I don't see Barrios getting in the ring with Boots. Not because he doesn't want to fight him, but because they not gonna give Boots the opportunity to bring that title over from PBC to Matchroom. MAW. Only way Keyshawn gets to fight Tio is if he was Tio's Mando. I get the impression Tio only willing to fight up versus Champ, but won't fight down versus Climber coming up for 135. Look, I think that Teofimo Lopez, for whatever reason, doesn't want to fight Keyshawn Davis. And I say that because they could have made that fight. They could have easily made that fight. Both with top rank. Yeah, both with top rank. That's an easy fight to make. And Keyshawn Davis been saying let's make that fight since they was both at 135. They was both in the same division. And Keyshawn was calling them out. So I think that Teofimo doesn't want to make that fight. That's what it looks like to me. Derek, that undisputed at 47 is a pipe dream right now. Although Boost is the strongest link. Yeah, I agree. Boost is the guy that has what it takes to become undisputed in the division. Does he get those fights? That's what I'm saying. I don't see Mario Barrios and Javon Boost Ennis fighting. Derek, they rather feed Barrios to Javante before letting him unify. I mean, like I said, man. And Tank confirmed that he's gonna retire after this year. So it looks like Tank may fight Lamont Roach, the rematch, next, and then Jake Paul at the end of the year and retire. Those might be his last two fights. Now, is he going to retire maybe for a couple of years and come back? Maybe. Many fighters have done that. But that's to be determined. He hasn't even retired yet. So we'll see. Maker. But did T.O. duck Keyshawn then? Or ducking is defined when one side sends a contract? So I have to say, look, if it's just talking, if they're just going back and forth, if it's just a conversation, there's no duck. If they just trash talking each other on social media, there's no duck. They never tried to make the fight happen. So I wouldn't say that Teofimo is ducking Keyshawn because there was never an attempt to make the fight happen. To me, it's a duck once you decline that offer. You're ducking. Now we're trying to make this our reality. Because a bunch of times fighters go back and forth on social media and they not even trying to fight each other. They just talking shit. You ain't shit. You a bum. I'll beat your ass. Blah, blah, blah. So to me, it's a duck once there's an attempt to make a fight and a fighter does the necessary to not make that fight. But it's I think there's different duck tactics. Cause I do have to point out fighters overpricing themselves is a duck tactic. Fighters, making lowball offers like what Devin did to Shakur. That's a duck tactic. So there's different ways, that fighters can avoid fighting somebody. I wouldn't say that Teofimo ducked Keyshawn because that fight was never on the table. Derek, Keyshawn a big dude. He a strong guy too. He's strong. Keyshawn is strong, bro. He can hurt you with both hands. And we already know the boxing IQ, the skills, training with Bomac now. Crazy. At times, Keyshawn even looks like Terrence Bud Crawford with some of the things he does in the ring. Trust me. MAW, every title fight or unification It's about opportunity. The opportunity to climb ranking or the champ willing to fight you or unify. It takes two to tango. You're right, my brother. It takes two to tango, but you see that's the thing when you're a champion and I'm a champion, we gotta both be in on it because at the end of the day, we'll never be mandated to fight each other. There's no such thing as a mandatory unification fight, which maybe that's something that should be put into boxing. There should be like a mandatory unification fight to where, every certain amount of time, we gotta unify titles. Whoever's the champion there, whoever the champion here, gotta fight each other. Like they should make it, for example. Let me give you an example. Every 2 years, the WBC and the IBF champion gotta fight each other. And the WBO and the WBA champion gotta fight each other. Every 2 years, right? Those two happen, boom. And the two winners fight each other. Boom. Now you got to undispute it. They should do something where champions are mandated to fight each other. That would be amazing. Cause now it's gonna really go down between champions every 2 years. But, there's no system in place. So if you're a champion and I'm a champion, I could choose not to fight you forever. That's why I've been trying to school people about Devin Haney. Because people say Devin Haney took the fight versus George Kambosos and went to Australia to fight him. Why Shakur didn't take the 25%, the lowball offer? There's a big difference between the two. Devin Haney was never going to be mandated to fight George Kambosos. So the only way that he could get that fight is if he took the offer. He had to take it. He was never going to be mandatory because both of them were champions. Shakur, on the other hand, at that time was not a champion. And Devin Haney was. Shakur was his mandatory. That's why Shakur did not have to take his offer, because as his mandatory, he was able to force the fight. So what was Devin Haney forced to do? Drop the titles and run out of the division. George Kambosos, he didn't have to fight Devin Haney. He could have told him, oh, you don't want to take this offer? Go kick rocks. I'm going to go fight somebody else. And Devin knew that. So he had no choice. He had to fight Kambosos. He had to fight him with whatever offer they gave him. Derek, you think Benavidez secretly ducking Bivol? Better BF? Of course not, my brother. Benavidez is the mandatory for Bivol, and he was trying to make that fight happen. If anything, Bivol is ducking Benavidez because he vacated the title to avoid that fight and do the trilogy with Better BF. Benavidez is one of those throwback fighters who want to fight everybody down to the smoke with everybody. Benavidez wanted to fight him badly, and they chose not to. Derek, low-key, Phil, he all talk, was sitting at 168 for 7 years and never wanted to unify. Listen, Benavidez realized that he spent too much time chasing that Canelo fight. You was chasing smoke and dreams. Listen, at one point, they even offered Benavidez the Canelo fight. He signed the contract and everything. And then it was like, nah, he's going in a different direction. They offer him like $1 million flat fee. No pay-per-view, no nothing. And he was like, let's go. Never heard from him again. He wanted to make that fight bad. But, he spent too much time. That's my opinion. He spent way too much time just trying to fight Canelo. Thinking, I got that mandatory spot. He's going to have to fight me at some point. And it never happened. It just never happened. But he was trying to, chasing that fight. But I promise you, he moved up with the willingness to fight whoever won between Bivol and Beterbiev. The winner of that fight, that's what he wanted. And he wanted Bivol, he made that real clear. And it was His Excellency Turkey Alaushik was like, he's not interested in that fight, obviously, because he don't deal with Benavidez. You know, he's working both with Bivol and Beterbiev, making an in-house thing. Derek, why he never activated the mandatory, though? At 68. The mandatory versus who? The mandatory versus who, my brother? But again, look, I say that versus Canelo, I think he did. I think at some point he was mandated to fight Canelo. See, look, never wanted it to go to purse bid. Nah, my brother, he was willing to go to purse bid with Canelo. He was, they sent him a $1 million offer flat with no pay-per-view, no nothing. And he was like, I was like, let's do it. And then I never heard from him again. He actually wanted to fight him for $1 million flat. That's a shit payday to fight Canelo, bro. So it's not about... See, let me show you something, my people. Let me show you what is my problem with mandatory. I'm not sure if all sanctioning bodies do this, but it seems like the WBC maybe does it, and others, where I'm your mandatory or you're my mandatory, but the fight kind of just sits there and it doesn't actually get mandated. It never goes to purse, but nothing really happens. You're the mandatory, but nothing really happens. They don't strip the guy from the title and they don't make him fight you. That happens. That happens. Because let me tell you something, my brother. Fighters don't dictate the purse bid. It's not the fighters, my guy, who dictate the purse bid. It's the sanctioning body. So it's the WBC's responsibility to say, Canelo, Benavidez is your mandatory. If you and him cannot agree on a purse amount, this fight is going to go to purse bid in 2 months, in a month, whenever it is. And then after the purse bid, they'll see what happens. Or, Canelo, we're going to have to strip you of that title and give it to Benavidez. Whatever action they're going to take. But the point is, sanctioning bodies, when a fighter is supposedly mandatory, they don't always mandate the fight. At no point in time was Canelo ever forced to fight Benavidez by the sanctioning body. What can I tell you, my guy? Canelo being, the superstar that he is, the face of boxing. I don't know if they give him preference or whatever, but they didn't make the fight happen. They didn't force him. You force, look how interesting it is. Watch this. I want you to consider this. Crawford was stripped of his title, of one of his titles, as soon as he fought at 154. Boom, stripped. They stripped him quick. So that's my problem with mandatory status. You could be mandatory, but it don't mean shit if the sanctioning body doesn't take any action to either make the fight happen or force the fighter to vacate the title. They don't really mean shit. IBF is the only one that really enforces it. That's what I feel like they did to Bivol low key. WBC wasn't next in line. Look, I feel like Dimitri Bivol, and look, they stripped him quick. You see that? The WBC stripped Bivol quick when he said, well, they didn't strip him. He vacated the strap. But they told him, the WBC told him, we're going to strip you if you don't fight Benavidez. Cool. But the WBC didn't strip Canelo when Benavidez was his mandatory. Look how interesting it is. It's still the same WBC. So why they did not send Canelo to purse bid or strip his title when he chose not to fight Benavidez at 168, but they stripped Bivol from his title when he chose not to fight Benavidez. Same opponent, different outcome. Different outcome. So it's not about Benavidez not wanting to fight Canelo at 168 or not wanting to enact his mandatory. The WBC didn't do shit to make it happen. They didn't do nothing to make it happen. Meanwhile, when they got to the 175 division, they wanted to force Bivol to fight Benavidez. Look how funny that is. Hash Bass. They stripped Crawford because they didn't want him to hold up the division because they knew and Crawford knew he wasn't going back to 147. Okay, so why did they strip Bivol? Why did they strip Bivol when he didn't fight Benavidez right away? I mean, they didn't strip Bivol. They threatened to strip him, so Bivol had to vacate, which is pretty much the same thing. You know, if you vacate before they strip you, it's pretty much the same thing. And what now? You can't say that Bivol was holding up the division. He's not going anywhere. He's at 175. Why they strip him? Take your time, my brother. Derek, hey yo, I ain't hating on Benavidez. Think he's an entertaining fighter. Nah, I didn't think you was hating on Benavidez. But I'm telling you, he's trying to get in the Bivol and Beterbiev. You know, those are both based on the performances that we've seen from them in the last couple of years. Those are pound for pound type of fighters. And Benavidez is trying to get in there with both of them. The plain air, WBC, Klitschko was beyond comprehension. What do you mean by that, my brother? The WBC Klitschko was beyond comprehension. What do you mean by that? Derek, WBO president said in that boxing voice that Benavidez' team never activated the mandatory. Now that's cap. That's cap. That's cap, my brother. Listen, let me tell you something. That's why with the sanctioning bodies, it's politics and bullshit. They didn't activate his mandatory. Now I want you to consider how often a fight get mandated when nobody activating shit. But when y'all don't make the fight, oh, it was him that didn't activate it. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear that shit. Y'all mandate fight, send fights to purse bid all the time. All the time. Now you want to point at somebody, oh, he didn't activate it. So you telling me that if fighters don't activate, then mandatories won't exist? They won't exist? Oh, you're the mandatory, but you got to activate it. That shit don't even make no sense. Come on now. Come on now. Hash Bass, fans don't want to see Bivol fight the same fighter 3 times. But what does that have to do with a mandatory? That has nothing to do with a mandatory. You do realize that mandatory slots have nothing to do with what fans want, right? I hope you know that. I hope you know that, my guy. Because the last one, you said Crawford did not get, was stripped because they didn't want him to hold up the division. Okay. You made up what you felt was a good argument. They don't want him to hold up the division. They stripped him. But you're saying that at 175, Bivol got stripped because of what fans want? Damn, Hash Bass. Don't embarrass yourself like this at 6 in the morning, bro. Mandatory status And the sanctioning bodies don't work based on what fans want, champ. That might be what you want and what you want to believe, but no, the sanctioning bodies don't work that way. They don't review anything and say, what do the fans want so we could decide who we want to strip of a title? Don't work that way, my guy. At the end of the day, the fight to make was Benavidez versus Dimitri Bivol. And the WBC, they understood that, and they stripped, or they told Bivol they was going to strip him, so he vacated. Yo, if you're forced to vacate, it's the same thing as getting stripped. You're being forced to vacate. If you don't vacate, we're going to take it from you. It's the same thing. But why did you not do that? WBC, why did you not do that with Canelo at 168 when Benavidez was his mandatory? Why did you say, well, Canelo, if you don't fight Benavidez, we're going to have to strip you? They could have did that, but they didn't. Why? It's the same opponent. Benavidez was Canelo's mandatory. Benavidez was Bivol's mandatory. Bivol had to give up his title. Canelo did not. Derek. BF did it to Usyk too when he said he was going into the Fury rematch. Yup. Did Usyk dirty. Took that title quick. How do some fighters will stay inactive for a year or two and keep their title? And you out here fighting and get stripped like that. Flip. What up, Jay? Have you heard anything about Mason saying that he wants all the smoke? I also heard he was dropping some big names. I think it's just a little premature. What say you? So, he actually mentioned Shakur Stevenson. Let's call it what it is. He called out or mentioned Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis. So, what I've been hearing is that the sanctioning body is getting ready to mandate Abdullah Mason versus Keyshawn Davis. Abdullah Mason is getting ready to become Keyshawn Davis's mandatory. And it looks like he's confident and he wants to make that fight. I actually dropped a video about that a couple days ago. Honestly, I feel like they should not rush Abdullah to a title shot just yet. In my personal opinion, he just turned 20 years old. Just turned 20. Or was it 21? Y'all could check for me. Maybe it was 21. If somebody could Google it and tell me, he just turned 20 or 21 years old. I don't think there's a need to rush him. And that would be a huge step up because he hasn't fought anybody even close to Keyshawn Davis' abilities. But, if they feel confident, if they feel ready, do what y'all got to do. But it does look like it's possible that we might get Abdullah Mason and Keyshawn Davis later this year. That's actually a possibility. Derek, ayo, remember when WBC said they never let Bivol fight for the BC because he was Russian amidst the Ukraine war? I remember that. That was crazy. That was crazy right there. Derek, Mauricio low-key be he be on some funny stuff, man. And I got respect for him because, look, Mauricio Sulaiman, WBC president, he's been, they've sanctioned a lot of big fights, the WBC, the Green Belt. They've accomplished a lot as an organization. But sometimes, man, they do things that leave me thinking, yo, what's going on here? What y'all really doing? Remember the franchise belt, the franchise champion and shit? Little things that just don't make sense. MAW, I will say, I will still enjoy the trilogy. First and second were very enjoyable and entertaining fights. In my humble opinion, hope to see Benavidez versus trilogy winner. So I will say, MAW, the first two fights, Both candidates of fight of the year, both explosive, both very competitive. I think that the trilogy is going to be just as entertaining as the first two. But I am saying, we saw 24 rounds of action between Bivol and Beterbiev. We didn't really need 36 rounds back to back to back. I felt like, David Benavidez versus Dmitry Bivol would have been a bigger fight, would have also been a very entertaining fight, and it would have been for all the marbles. They would have been fighting for undisputed. David Benavidez would have had the opportunity to become undisputed. Now, we see what happened. Bivol vacates a belt. Now they're going to fight for the 3 titles. And, I think it would have been bigger and better had it been Benavidez versus Bivol as opposed to a trilogy. Now, the trilogy, I'm pretty sure is going to be an entertaining fight. I'm pretty sure it's going to be super competitive. I still would have preferred to see Benavidez versus Bivol. As far as Benavidez fighting the winner, by the way, I don't know. Because it looked like His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh don't want to work with Benavidez. So he might not even be able to fight the winner. Derek, WBC was holding up the undisputed fight at 75 for the longest. People seem to forget. I mean, like I said, man, it's all about politics. It's all about politics. That's why I'm saying how this fighter gets stripped real quick for this situation, but that fighter's under the same situation and he don't get stripped. You gotta wonder. Hash Bass. Fans make the sanctioning body money because Bivol versus Beterbiev is a bigger money fight and will make more money. Hash Bass, let me educate you, my brother. The sanctioning body makes a percentage of the purse of the champion. That percentage of the purse of the champion don't got absolutely nothing to do with the fans. Those are set purses. The fans don't got absolutely nothing to do with shit that the sanctioning body is going to do. So those are connections because you're not in boxing. You just watch your shit on TV. So you kind of just take what makes sense to you and just put it together. Like, well, this is what makes sense. It sounds good to me. But no, my brother, it doesn't work that way. The sanctioning body gets a set amount of money. It doesn't matter if 100 million fans go over there or if 10 fans go over there. They're going to make a set amount of money, a percentage of the purse. That's what they're going to make. But I guess it was a good logic that you made up in your head out of thin air. Derek, I still think Bivol will take the smoke with Benavidez. Seemed like he just wanted to honor the last bout with Beterbiev. Beterbiev is a tough dude too, so that's why I think he's ducking Benavidez. Look, I think that these guys are willing to fight anybody, right? Now, Dmitry Bivol could have fought Benavidez and then went back and forth the trilogy with Beterbiev. But that trilogy would not have been as big if he got his ass kicked by Benavidez. It would have lost value. So I think they didn't want to take that risk. Like, if this guy beats me, this is going to be over. Plus, he won't even be a champion anymore. So him versus Beterbiev wouldn't even be a title fight if they did the trilogy right after he loses to Benavidez, who would be the undisputed champion. So imagine if Benavidez is the undisputed champion in the division. Now who's gonna be, willing to go try to take them titles from him? Yo, the Mexican monster becomes undisputed in a division. That's a problem. Anybody wants to be a champion, you're gonna have to go see him. Now, after the trilogy fight, is the winner gonna fight Benavidez? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know because it looked like His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh don't even want to do business with him. That's my perception, at least. Flip, I agree, family. Thanks. Appreciate it, my brother. Derek, I agree with not doing the trilogy back-to-back fights. I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Look, the trilogy is gonna play out just like the first two. Obviously, the first two, Better BF won the first one, Bivol won the second one. So the final outcome was different. But I'm talking about the overall optics of the fight. It's gonna be the same. It's gonna be a very competitive fight. They're gonna be back and forth. They're both gonna land good punches on each other, and the decision is gonna be real close. It's gonna play out pretty much like we know how this fight is gonna play out. We've seen 24 rounds of action between these two fighters. We know how these 12 rounds are gonna play out. We don't know how the Mexican Monster versus Dimitri Bivol will play out. We don't know that. That's what I would love to see. Derek, both fights look the same. Just different things the judges saw. Now, to be honest, I saw Bivol edging out the second one. If you look, I'm gonna put it to you like this. Google an image of the first fight when the winner is announced, and then Google an image of the second fight when the winner is announced, and you're gonna notice a big difference in Bivol's face. After that first fight, his shit looked like a tomato, ripe, red, all over, bruised. And in the second fight, Bivol looked clean. So he did a much better job, number one with the footwork, and number one with the counter punching, with the making a miss, bang, bang, making a miss a lot on the inside. What was different in this fight, and I saw Bivol talking about it. Bivol said in the first fight, he blocked a punch from Better BF. Boom! Blocked it, bro. And it felt like it almost broke his face, blocking it. He said, damn. So for that second fight, he used a lot more footwork and head movement. He used a lot. He slipped a lot of punches instead of blocking them. That's one thing people don't realize. If you never boxed, and I'm not talking about in the street, people just throwing hands. I'm talking about boxing competitively in a ring, with boxing gloves, with small gloves and all that, 8 ounce. What you find out if you box and what you know if you box is that, sometimes you could block a punch and it still hurt. It still hurt. When I was an amateur boxer, I got my nose broken on a punch I blocked. Like I went like this, and the punch hit me so hard, boom, that it busted my nose. I was leaking on a blocked punch. So yes, a punch that you block, it might not knock you out, but you can still feel it. And that second fight, Dimitri Bivol did a great job of slipping punches and moving punches, making a miss, as opposed to blocking so much. Flip, whoa, that's so exciting to hear. It will be great for boxing. I hope it happens. I hope that it happens. We're going to see. Raw Dog, you see Charlo discussing snack, PEDs, and fixed fights? I did not see it. That's a video that I have to see. I actually saw somebody talking about it, but I haven't seen the actual video. So I want to check it out. I did see a comment in Blue Blood Sports TV where they said that according to Charlo, Canelo's still on PEDs and other stuff about that. I gotta say, my brother, and I was talking about that earlier, it's a big coincidence that Eddy Reynoso fighters keep popping dirty for steroids. At this point, Canelo, Oscar Valdez, Jaime Munguia now, and a couple of other fighters that got popped. So you have to wonder. Because, look, steroids is a part of boxing. It's a part of the sport. I get that. People gonna try to cheat. It's a part of sports. Cheating is a part of sports. People try to cheat. I get it. But when you have the same trainer who has fighters that keep popping dirty, you have to wonder. You have to keep, you have to think. Wait a minute. Could all these fighters under Eddy Reynoso be doing steroids and him not know about it? Could it be possible? Because, I get it. If you're a trainer and you have 4 or 5 fighters, and then there's this one fighter who's doing it on the low and he pops dirty, and, that happened. It happened. Okay. He caught it. But when you're talking about the same trainer whose fighters keep getting popped, you have to wonder. You have to wonder. It's the same guy. Why other trainers don't have 3, 4, 5 fighters on their roster who pop dirty? Why other trainers, we've never heard any of their fighters pop dirty? It makes you wonder. And the thing is, Jaime Munguia, I said this earlier, Jaime Munguia wasn't with Eddy Reynoso up until recently. So he's never popped dirty. Now he goes signs with Eddy Reynoso, he gets popped. Boom. What's going on? Why are Eddy Reynoso fighters popping dirty? At any point in time, is anyone gonna look at Eddy and be like, bro, what's going on with your peoples? What's up with your mans in them? Is Eddy Reynoso the steroid plug? Is he the one getting the goddamn steroids? Or calling the guy like, yo, I got this fighter, hook him up. What is going on? And I only ask the questions because, like I said, my peoples, I'm not a believer in coincidences. I'm not a coincidence type person. If something keeps happening over here over and over and over, you have to wonder, why it's not happening over there over and over and over? Why these other trainers don't have 5, 6 fighters who pop dirty? And the funny thing about it is that with Eddy Reynoso, it's like he has a fighter pop dirty, and like people start talking about it, the conversation dies down. Then a year later, another fighter pops dirty. Then the conversation dies down. A year or 2 later, boom, another one pops dirty. It's like this cycle keeps repeating itself. What's going on? What is going on with Eddy Reynoso fighters? Flip. Who has the better chin between Keyshawn and Mason? I've seen Mason get dropped, but he got up and got his guy out of there. Damn, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Yeah, Abdullah Mason showed that he's a dog. He showed it. As far as who has the better chin, it's hard to answer that question because at the end of the day, you could just get hit with a good shot and get dropped. It doesn't mean that you have a better or a worse chin. So honestly, I don't know how to answer that question, who has the better chin. I think Abdullah just got caught with a good shot and got dropped. I remember, he got dropped twice in the same round by a guy that wasn't even that good, but hit hard. He got dropped by an awkward fighter. And I would have to say Abdullah Mason, got a little bit irresponsible with his defense. He got hit with shots that he shouldn't get hit with. And that's why I think that he needs a little bit more development before getting in the ring with Keyshawn Davis. I really do. But, that's my perception from the outside looking in. His team believe in him. His team believe he could beat Keyshawn Davis. Go for it. Go for it and see how it plays out. But it looks like we might actually get Abdullah Mason versus Keyshawn Davis later this year. may actually happen. That fight may actually happen. If it does, I'm with it. No problem with it whatsoever, my people. I'm telling you that right now. Now, Keyshawn Davis versus Edwin De Los Santos is a fight that is gonna be interesting. You know, I got Keyshawn Davis beating De Los Santos, and I find it funny that somebody was trolling me and trash talking like crazy that I don't know shit about boxing because Edwin De Los Santos is gonna beat Keyshawn Davis, and Edwin De Los Santos got better everything than Keyshawn Davis, better footwork, better hand speed, better ring IQ, and he's just a better fighter than Keyshawn Davis. Like, this guy's going ham. So I think there's a reason for that, and part of it is that people won't acknowledge how good Keyshawn Davis actually is. They don't want to accept it just yet. They're gonna find out. And you know, I think this is something that we see a lot in boxing, that for whatever reason, until you beat a star, people won't acknowledge you as a top level guy. They want to acknowledge you as, being amongst the elite. If you haven't beat a star, look at the question Hash Bass was asking. Oh, who he beat? Who he beat? When you haven't beat a star, casual boxing fans will ask that question. Who he beat? Who he beat? He didn't beat a star yet. So Keyshawn Davis is in that stage where we already know the type of fighter that he is, but the casual fans are going to keep questioning him until he beat a star. They do that to Boots. One day they'll ask you, oh, who Boots beat? Who he beat? So the who he beat question is always relevant until you beat a star. Look, they don't ask who Terrence Crawford beat anymore. And Terrence Crawford beat a bunch of champions, beat a bunch of undefeated fighters, beat a bunch of top-level fighters. But he had to beat Errol Spence for Hash Bass and the rest of the haters to stop asking who he beat. That's how it is. You got to beat a star, or people are always going to ask who you beat. Derek, yeah. And Munguia got popped for testosterone, too. Not a diuretic like Valdez. Look, I got to say, my brother, in my personal opinion, something is going on with Eddy Reynoso. I don't know what it is, but I feel like something is up because Munguia is just another Eddy Reynoso fighter popping for steroids. Come on now. Another one? I don't know. Flip. Okay. Thanks, Jay and Hash family. Catch you guys later. I gotta head to work. Yo, Flip, as always, appreciate you dropping in. Enjoy the rest of your day, my brother. Catch you later. MAW, subscribe, share, and smash that like button, please, folks. Hell yeah, my peoples. Y'all already know what it is, man. Box Center, the #1 boxing channel in the world, in the Milky Way galaxy, in the universe. I already told y'all, even the aliens don't have a channel like this one. Raw Dog. Crawford killed the LDBC movement. Listen, man, Terrence Bud Crawford has shown how a guy that is hated on, everybody's against him, and how he could get all the way to the point where he's going to be in the biggest fight in boxing when it comes to Canelo Alvarez. Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez is the biggest fight in boxing. This guy went from fans shitting on him to being in the biggest fight in boxing. So salute to Terrence Crawford, my brother. Derek, they always going to do that though. They pick and choose. Keyshawn can beat a reigning champion at 35 and make him look below average. But people will say he's a nobody, but Tank will fight a Frank Martin. Martin, and all of a sudden, the guy's a name. No disrespect to Frank, but just trying to make the point. No, I agree with you. Look, the thing is that Tank Davis reached a certain level of stardom, right? So he already has, what we affectionately call the Tankomaniac. So he has a hardcore fan base who they'll watch whoever he fights. I've had Tank Davis fans tell me straight up, I don't care who he fights as long as he knock him out. I just want to be entertained. So when you're Tank Davis, you're in a position where you can really cherry pick your opponents for the rest of your career because you already have a fan base that's going to support you. Look, it's a possibility that Tank Davis might fight Lamont Roach rematch, Jake Paul at the end of the year, and then retire. He might actually do that. Now, what allows him to do that? That he has a fan base that supports his every move. He has a loyal fan base. So that's the way that it plays out. He doesn't have to fight any of the big dogs. He doesn't have a fan base asking him to do that. Come on now. Tank Davis doesn't have a fan base like other fighters who want their guys to fight the best. If you look at Teofimo Lopez fans, they want him to fight Boots. Boots, some people are saying that he would absolutely smash Teofimo Lopez. So Teofimo fans want him to get that smoke. Shakur fans, they want him to fight the best. Crawford fans want him to fight Canelo. Tank Davis fans want him to fight Lamont Roach. They want him to fight Frank Martin. They want him to fight Pitbull Cruz. They want him to fight the good fighters that everybody knows he's going to beat. These are good fighters. They not bums. But everybody knows Tank going to beat them. Everybody knows. So that is the difference. While other fighters have a fan base that are calling for the biggest fights, that are calling for their guy to fight the big name champions, Tank Davis fans are calling him to cherry pick the rest of his career and just stay undefeated and keep knocking out the good fighters. When you have a fan base like that, you can do it. Because when you fight a guy who's never been a champion, guess what? They're going to fill up that stadium and go watch you. They're going to buy the pay-per-view. So you can make a shitload of money without ever really having to fight any of the best. Derek, Frank Keyshawn would be a good fight. Good win for Keyshawn too. I like that fight. And let me tell you something. Frank Martin, I'm a believer in him. I think under the right circumstances, he could become a world champion. The only thing that I think affects Frank Martin is that I don't know if it's, and it probably is, if you think about PBC, a lot of PBC fighters are experiencing long periods of inactivity. Hit that like button, my people. I'm about to give you an explanation that deserves a like. What I'm about to tell you deserves for you to hit that like button. So, when PBC went to Amazon Prime, a lot of people were celebrating that. A lot of people were saying, yo, this is millions of dollars. It's millions of people subscribed. They're going to blow up. That shit was a horrible deal. It was a horrible deal. And I'm going to remind you, a few years back, you can look up the video when Adrian Broner said, Steven Espinoza is out of there. Showtime is out of there. Yo, we're going to be boxing on Twitter. And we laughed it off when he said that. Adrian Broner was right. You think about this. When Adrian Broner said, we're going to be fighting on Twitter, he said that because Twitter is an application not known for boxing, right? It's not a boxing platform. He said that because he already knew that PBC had already burned their bridges with ESPN, had already burned their bridges with Showtime, had already burned their bridges with Fox. So he knew that the big boxing networks, They wasn't going over there. So when he said we're going to be fighting on Twitter, he was right, because they ended up in Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is not a platform that is known for boxing. But if you go to Amazon Prime, who's not known for boxing, your roster of fighters, who the fuck they gonna fight over there? Who they gonna fight? Who's going to Amazon Prime? So you now get to see a lot of PBC fighters experiencing mad inactivity. Look at Frank Martin. Look at Frank Martin. We was just talking about him. Look, let me see. When was the last time that Frank Martin was in the ring? Watch this, my people. I'm Googling it. I'm Googling Frank Martin's box rec. Because y'all know how I do. I like to, oh shit. How the fuck do I got plane mode open in here? I like to Google the facts, my peoples. But let's see, when was the last time that Frank Martin fought? Let me check out Frank Martin's box rec. Right? So, what I'm trying to explain to you, my people, is that a lot of PBC fighters started experiencing a lot of inactivity as soon as they went to Amazon Prime. Because who are you going to fight? I know y'all like to fight in-house, but you don't have a roster in every weight class to make a bunch of fights in-house on Amazon Prime. You don't have it. Look at that. Frank Martin fought Tank Davis in June of 2024. June. It's about to be a year since we last saw Frank Martin. So you have a highly talented fighter, because remember, before Tank Davis stopped him, he was competitive. He was competitive. He was. Hash Bash, you're saying everybody fighting on an app. It's a difference when the Zone is an app known for boxing and Amazon Prime is a app known for movies, known for shows, known for series. They not known for boxing, buddy. Stop it. Every app is not the same. Some apps are for combat sports and some, like Amazon Prime, are not. When PBC went to Amazon Prime, the shit went downhill. Like I said, Frank Martin, my people, has not fought. Look at it right there. June 15th, when he lost to Tank Davis, is the last time we saw Frank Martin in the ring. So now he's experiencing, a talented fighter who's experiencing all of this inactivity. That's not good for him. And Frank Martin is not 20, 21 years old. He's not a young kid. So that's why the PBC move to Amazon Prime wasn't as good as they sold it. That was a horrible move. You left everybody without opponents. You left people on a lonely island, and now everybody's experiencing mad inactivity. Derek, Tank fight last year, I think same day as Liam Parrow and Subriel Matias. Yeah, I actually watched both, and I was calling both at the same time. QT, I mean, I don't remember if it was those two that I was calling at the same time, but I know that there were a couple of fights that happened. Liam Parrow and Subriel Matias. I don't know. I'm not sure if it was that fight, to be honest, but I know that there were multiple fights on the same day that I was calling. QT, probably never see Frank again. That was a cash out for him, an arrow. Nah, I don't think so, my brother. I don't think so. Frank Martin, it's like I told you, man, the PBC, they've been having problems with keeping fighters active when they went to Amazon Prime. Frank Martin, after they left to Amazon Prime, after Tank Davis, I seen him in the gym. I seen him training. I seen him that they were trying to, make a fight happen and just couldn't get it done. So Frank Martin is trying to fight, but Like I told you, man, he has a bad deal. Like right now, people didn't even notice how many fighters left PBC the moment they left to Amazon Prime. Carlos Adames was already a reigning champion. We were like, nah, yo, I'm out of here. Carlos Adames a reigning champion at 160. And he's been signed to PBC for a couple of years. Yo, as soon as they left to Amazon Prime, he was like, yo, good doing business with y'all. I'm out of here, my peoples. Michel Ali Rodriguez, a kid that looks like Muhammad Ali. He was a PBC fighter. Jumped ship. A lot of PBC fighters whose contract were up, they jumped ship. They were like, nah, I'm out of here. And y'all didn't catch it. And then those who chose not to leave, in activity like crazy, not fighting. So that's why I believe, Frank Martin is been inactive because he's with the PBC and they're not getting, they're not making fights, not getting opponents. Raw dog, Farmer versus Schofield. Who you got? I'm gonna go with Schofield on that. I think Tevin Farmer, is gonna give him a good fight. But at this point in his career, I think Tevin has been through a lot. He's taken a lot of punishment, a lot of mileage on him. And I got the young gun winning that fight, to be honest. Right now, Tevin at 34 years old, and 34 years old, he's not an old guy. He's not washed up or anything like that. But at 34 years old, with the type of wars that he's been in, he's been, on the bad end of a lot of close decisions too. He's been robbed, I believe, a couple times. But at this point in his career, I think the young lion is gonna get him. I feel bad for Tevin, man. At this point, he lost 3 fights in a row. Lost to Raymond Murataya, and then lost to William Zepeda twice in a row. So I think, Abdullah Mason is gonna have what it takes to beat him. With his boxing skills, his ring savvy, ring IQ, I'm sure he'll be able to give a young lion like Floyd Schofield a tough fight. But I don't see him winning. I don't see him winning that fight. I just don't see it. Derek, that's why Boots jumped ship. You see? Yo, and trust me, when it comes to Boots, there was a bidding war. They all was fighting to get him. Tooth and nail. Eddie Hearn won that fight. That's why I said yesterday, Eddie Hearn, I see him as the biggest promoter in boxing. Everybody wanted Boots, and he went with Matchroom. There you go. That shows. QT, Leonard Ellaby laughed at Crawford for fighting on the ESPN app years ago. Now look at things. Yo, listen. I'm going to remind you, QT. Let me remind you. He didn't laugh at Crawford for the ESPN app. I'm going to remind you, my brother. I'm the human algorithm. I'm going to remind you. Eddie Hearn was going back and forth with Leonard Ellaby. And there was conversations about a possible matchup between Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. But that was way before they actually fought. And Leonard Ellaby said his fighters would never fight on an app and laughed at him. Like, what are we talking about? Those people fight on a little app. He was talking about the Zone. He laughed because at that time, they was fighting on Showtime. And they was exclusively fighting on Showtime. But while they were running Showtime to the ground, the Zone was blowing up. More and more champions going to the Zone. Fucking Floyd Mayweather did an exhibition on the Zone, bro. So look how it turns out. Now, Leonard Ellaby, after laughing at fighters who fight on the app, laughing at the zone, PBC fighters ended up leaving him to go fight on the zone. Floyd Mayweather did an exhibition on the zone. And now, Leonard Ellaby and Floyd Mayweather split ways. There you have it. There you have it. The people who fight on apps made him eat his words. Now, yeah, motherfuckers went to Amazon Prime, to an app that doesn't even do boxing. Y'all looking bad out there. Think about that. Y'all are looking bad out there. Hello, cool guy. What's the deal, my brother? How do you laugh at an app? You laugh at, oh, we don't fight. They fight on an app. We on Showtime. And now you are on Amazon Prime. Yo, from Showtime to Amazon Prime, that's one of the biggest drop-offs that we've seen in boxing. Might as well went from Showtime to public access TV. Like, what are we doing here? Look at how many fighters. Like, yo, the other day I was talking, I like to do this in person, because when you talk to somebody over the phone, they could Google stuff and act like they already knew it. But no, you didn't know it. You Googled it. I told them, yo, name 5 fighters on the PBC roster that are active right now. Motherfucker said, Tank Davis, Benavidez, and yo, he was stuck on Tank Davis and Benavidez. He didn't even have a name to say. He didn't even have a name that he could bring up and say, this guy's active, this guy's active. Because the overwhelming majority of PBC fighters are experiencing inactivity. Right now, there's fighters that you don't even know they're on the PBC roster. There's fighters that you don't even know are on the PBC roster. Come on now. Derek, salute, though. My guy, great talk. Gotta start heading off to work. Pa la otra. You already know, my G. Ejecuta esa diligencia. So, I gotta say, my peoples, look. When we look at the landscape of where every fighter chooses to go to and what promoters are doing, the PBC is not in a good place right now. They not. And look, now Bob Arum is going to go to the zone. I thought that Bob Arum was going to go to Amazon Prime. I even spoke about it. I was like, yo, if Bob Arum goes to Amazon Prime, now you're going to see top-ranked fighters matching up with PBC fighters more often. I mean, we've seen top-ranked and PBC fighters, but that doesn't happen a lot, especially with their big-name fighters. You don't see, champions from PBC fighting guys from Top Rank. They like to keep those titles in-house, those title fights. Floyd Mayweather said that himself. So, that's no big secret. But I felt like with them both on Amazon Prime, that was going to open the door so that PBC don't have to keep fighters inactive for such long times. And look, I don't like to see inactivity, man. Inactivity kills careers. Like I told you, Frank Martin is a very good fighter. He's right there. You see the greatest fighters now, Frank Martin is a guy that's like right below those top guys, right there. But that inactivity will keep him there or even bring him down to lower levels. That's how I see it. You very cool. I appreciate the compliment, my brother. So, like I said, my peoples, inactivity is, the enemy of fighters, and the PBC going over to Amazon Prime, that has kept a lot of people in ice. Frank Martin, since he lost to Tank Davis almost a year ago, he should have fought once or twice. Could have fought once or twice after that fight. Going on a year, hasn't stepped in the ring yet, doesn't have a fight lined up or announced or anything. Come on now. And Frank Martin is a guy that was this close to fighting Shakur Stevenson. If you recall, he didn't like the offer that they made, so it didn't happen. But come on now. Frank Martin was going to fight Shakur Stevenson how long ago? Good morning, Ryan. Come over here. Frank Martin was going to fight Shakur Stevenson. And that fell through, so why hasn't he fought still? Good morning, Ryan. You want to say good morning to the people? Say good morning. Say good morning. We talking about boxing over here. You don't want to talk about boxing with them? Good morning. You feeling shy? You don't want to talk to the people? They looking at you. Lubin was out there forever too. Oh man, my brother. Listen, Raw Dog. I felt like Lubin should have been retired. He's taken a lot of punishment, some nasty beatings at this point. I seen Lubin face looking like a Ninja Turtle. It's like, just hang it up, bro. Derek. Oh no, MAW. Amazon Prime only offers platform without a budget, so PBC got to find own money for sure. The thing about Amazon Prime, my brother, that a lot of people didn't realize. Amazon Prime. Look, they said good morning, Ryan. Look, he said good morning.
Good morning.
He said good morning to you.
Good morning.
Ryan says good morning. So the thing that people don't realize about Amazon Prime is that they're a distributor for PBC. A distributor. To put it in more simple terms, as a distributor, all they do is provide the platform. Here's the platform, stage your event, and we're going to air it here. And we're going to get a cut for airing your fights on our platform. That's a distributor.
Papa.
Dime, Lito.
¿Qué es esta cámara?
That's Box Center. Those are the people that are watching us talking about boxing. Right there. See, look. They talking to me about boxing. And I'm talking to them about boxing.
Oh.
Yes.
Después, ya terminamos y después vamos a terminar ya.
Okay, but I haven't finished yet. I gotta finish. You wanna go with mommy so I can finish? You wanna go with your mommy? Look, he don't wanna go. You wanna go with mommy? You wanna stay here? Okay, stay here. So, Amazon Prime is a distribution deal what they have with PBC, which means we're not giving you money. You're gonna stage your event and we're gonna air it in our platform. And we're gonna get a cut for doing that. That's a distribution deal. Now, people were assuming and saying that this was going to be huge for PBC. But so that you can see what a horrible deal that is, go to Amazon Prime and see if they promote PBC. If they promote PBC events. They don't promote it. There's nothing on Amazon Prime to promote PBC. PBC promotes their shit. PBC has their little corner where they have their fight stuff. But Amazon Prime itself, they don't promote PBC or nothing that goes down in PBC. It's a distribution deal. We let you use our platform. It's not like Showtime, who says, here's the budget for the fight. Boom, here's 10 million. Here's 15 million. Here's 20 million. They ran Showtime boxing into the ground. That's the way it goes down, my people. That's why, just because Amazon has millions of subscribers doesn't mean that those people want to watch boxing or are going to support boxing. It's not a boxing platform. People didn't subscribe to Amazon Prime to get boxing. They subscribed to it to get shows, movies, events. That's what they subscribe for. It's not a boxing fan platform. There you have it. So, my peoples, I want to thank y'all for tuning in this morning. Shout out to everybody who came through. MAW, Raw Dog, Hash Bass, Derek, my brother from Asia, very cool guy, and everybody else who came through, my people. I really appreciate it. Derek, QT. Y'all already know, man. I'm Jay Smith. This is Ryan Enzo. I got to go to work. He got to go to school. But this is Box Center, your favorite boxer's favorite boxing show.
Habla con mi bolita.
Hablo con tu bolita.
Que ti pueda de colores.
Okay, but we got to go. We got to get out of here. You want to tell them goodbye? Because I got to say goodbye, too. Say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
See you later, my peoples. Y'all already know what it is. Peace.
Ya terminamos.
Ya terminamos. You want to say bye?
Bye-bye.
See you later. You want to say peace?
Cheers.
Peace. We out of here.